source in House leadership promises me this time they have the votes. George Will is here, NewsNation senior political contributor, Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist for The Washington Post. Mr. Will, why?
Why what?
I guess that's the question, right? Why can Republicans not figure this out?
It's amazing. In the first place, people have different ideas of what constitutes a high crime and misdemeanor grounds for impeachment, but no serious person believes that you can impeach someone for carrying out flawed policies of his president. And that's really what they're doing. They don't like Biden's policies, so they're trying to impeach someone who's obeying the man at whose pleasure he serves.
Is there, and just to be fair about this, is there a political reason to do this right now and not talk about Joe Biden's age as an issue?
There's one reason not to talk about Joe Biden's age, because they don't need to, Leland. The Democrats have two choices, and they're both awful. They can keep bringing Mr. Biden out in public, and he's going to keep having these episodes that highlight his defect, or they can hide him, in which case people are saying they're going to hide him. I have a question. There's not much that pharmacology can do, drugs for senescence, but there's something. Has anyone asked at a White House press briefing, is the president taking any of these medicines? Just a question. Because the health and the medicines taken by presidents matter. We learned this with Roosevelt in 1944 when he ran for re-election, when he clearly was dying. We learned this in 1960 and further on in the Kennedy presidency when people avoided the subject of his Addison's disease. Since then, we have come to terms with the fact that the health of a president, his health conditions and the medicines he's taking are legitimate questions for us to be asking.
Well, and they were asked a lot of Donald Trump. Donald Trump put out his doctors to speak to the media. So far, the White House has refused to do that. I think your question is an important one. It's one that we've begun to look into as a story, not so much at the briefing. I guess when I think about the live pictures right now on Capitol Hill and this vote going on, and new reporting now that because of the storm in New York and on the Northeast, you can see Republicans don't yet have the number of votes, so they may have to wait again to actually bring up the impeachment, or they may lose it again. Boy, you say the political reason to do it is because they don't have to talk about Joe Biden's age. If they keep failing on these things, does that not hurt the Republican brand?
But as you said, if they succeed, they fail. That is, if they succeed, they send it to the Senate, where the Senate will swat it down as rightly it should. So this is part of the performative politics we now have, completely cut off from practical consequences.
No, I understand and I agree with that. I think about it more from the media standpoint, that sans any other story, much like on Friday night, the world and the American media stopped and looked at Joe Biden's age. They saw the special counsel report on Thursday, the press conference on Thursday night, which I think reasonable people can agree was a real disaster. And then on Friday, the world was finally covering Joe Biden's age as a real story. And what did Donald Trump do on Saturday night? He said, no, talking about Joe Biden is bad for me. Therefore, I will say some outrageous things, and we will play them now. So the media then focuses on me. Take a listen.
One of the presidents of a big country stood up and said, well, sir, if we don't pay and we're attacked by Russia, will you protect us? I said, you didn't pay? You're delinquent? He said, yes, let's say that happened. No, I would not protect you. In fact, I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want. You got to pay. You got to pay your bills.
All right, and then he went on to talk about Nikki Haley's husband and the like. We all know that. But at some point, Republicans keep giving an adversarial media to them and a friendly media to Joe Biden reasons to talk about how dumb Republicans are rather than how old Joe Biden is. That has to be a bad thing.
It is a bad thing, and there are lots of things this country cares about and doesn't like. Big things like inflation, small things like get your hands off my dishwasher. All these things that are just annoying people. Government in their face all the time, and these are Trump and others are talking about things no one cares about. No one.
Have Republicans always been this undisciplined, or is this a new phenomenon?
No, I think this is new. The Republicans used to win elections. They used to care about winning elections. I don't think they care about winning elections now, or they wouldn't be putting all their eggs in the tattered basket of Mr. Trump's candidacy.
Is it that they don't care about winning elections, or they are so terrified now of the fringe minority, the Marjorie Taylor Greenes and others who are demanding impeach Mayorkas and then fundraise off of it, that the relatively moderate center can't focus on the issues you talked about and therefore are forced into these kinds of votes?
But that fringe minority is large enough to cause a primary against any disobedient senator or congressman. They're not worried about losing a general election. They're worried about primaries. Most of the members of the House are in safe seats, Leland. They couldn't lose them if they tried.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.